Good morning, good morning, good morning, and welcome to another episode of On the Couch with Creatives. I say good morning because I'm here in the UK, but good afternoon, good evening if you're anywhere else in the world. I'm Melanie Perry.
I'm Julie Hyde-Mew.
This is On the Couch with Creatives. Followers and fans of the show will know by now that we're part of the Creatives Group, the professional network for creative individuals in all kinds of creative industries across the globe. Together, we help you connect, develop, create, and grow your creative business together. But this is On the Couch. So, Julie, who do we have on the couch today?
Well, today we have voiceover artist Simon Wells on the couch. And Simon is London born and bred. He's based in Shepperton, near the studios. Like many voiceover artists, Simon has had a roundabout career path before landing up as a sought-after voice. So bring him on, Melanie. Hi, Simon.
Hi, Simon.
Hello. Good morning, ladies. How are you both?
Well, both coughing and spluttering, but we'll get through this, and you can give us some tips later on how you keep your voice all beautifully smooth through all the ups and downs of all the lurgies out there. But let's kick off with your very strange career path, because you weren't always a voiceover artist, and you weren't always wanting to be a voiceover artist, were you?
No, that's right. This kind of I still say it happened by mistake, really. I didn't go after this in any way at all. So I've had a varied career path, as you say. I've had many different jobs over the years, ranging from web designer to estate agent. That was a mistake. I shouldn't have done that. Through to a little bit of office work and IT. I've been a driver. I've been a postman was the biggest thing. So I was a postman for 17 years, and that was kind of my career path, and it was, that's where I thought I was going. And fate, I guess, the universe had other ideas. I suffered a back injury which led to some spinal surgery, which led to being very strongly recommended not to carry 20-kilo sacks of mail over my shoulder every day. So I had to stop doing that and rethink. And I just didn't really have a clue what I wanted to do. None of the other things I'd tried had really stuck very well. But I was unemployed. I was worried about the future, bills to pay, and all this kind of stuff. And one day I was just kind of fiddling around on Facebook, wasting my time probably looking at cat videos, as many people do when they're in that situation, lots of time on your hands. And this advert popped up on my Facebook screen by a gentleman called Peter Dixon, who's the voice of the X Factor and Britain's Got Talent and all of those shows, the really big, boomy, live from London fella. You'd recognize his voice rather than his face. And he set up a company called Gravy for the Brain, which teaches people how to be voiceover artists, to follow in his footsteps. And I'd never given this a thought. I've always enjoyed doing silly voices and accents and impressions. I can't read a book without putting the character voices on. And there he was on my screen saying, this could be a career. Give it a go. So I gave it a go. I signed up, and I never looked back.
Wow. I love that when you find something that really resonates with you and think, yes, I found my thing. So what was it? What part of that course was it that really flipped that switch, or did you just know from the day one?
I think I at least knew that this was something I wanted to pursue from day one. Just hearing Peter Dixon talking about the industry, all the different elements there are to it, all the different genres, from audiobooks to cartoons to e-learning to telephone messaging systems. There's just so much of it. And the more he spoke, the more I thought, that sounds interesting. That bit sounds interesting. I could do that. I could try that. And it just began to resonate. And because I had all the time in the world, I just gobbled up all the material. So this website is full of webinars and training videos, and they give you live coaching and things like that. Excuse me, I'm just getting over the cold as well. um, and it just kind of seeped in. It took me ages to think, yes, this might actually be a viable job choice for me. But at least, at the very minimum, it was something that I enjoyed doing. It was something I enjoyed absorbing and learning more about. and tinkering with. And just little by little by little, I sort of, went from thinking, I'm an ex-postman, I haven't got a clue what to do, to, oh, this is a nice way to fill the time whilst I'm working out what I want to do, to, oh, I think this might be what I want to do. It was a really gradual seeping in.
And how long have you been doing it for?
I'm coming up to 3 years now.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay. So
3
you're
years.
rather new on the block still.
Yeah, compared to some of the veterans, people have been doing this for decades and decades and seen all the changes in technology, in the different platforms we use, in the way you get jobs. People have seen this through, thick and thin, and I'm, yeah, relatively speaking, I'm quite new to it, but this sort of seems to be my niche.
Well,
And
let's talk about the jobs because you've done corporate videos, you've done
Mhm.
meditation apps, you're the voice on answering machines. How do you pick up those jobs?
So there are a few different ways we go about it. There are pay-to-play sites, so we subscribe to websites such as Mandy, Backstage, Badalgo, things like this. And clients go and post jobs that they need filling. So they post a sample script, we audition for them, and they pick whoever it is that they feel is most suitable to that role. That's one method. Another method is to have an agent who sources the work for you. Even that in itself has changed quite a lot. People of a certain vintage would have had one agent, and that was their source of work. Their agent finds the work, gets them the audition. Now you can have multiple agents in multiple countries. We're also interconnected. It doesn't really matter where your client base is these days because we all work remotely from our own home studios. So an agent is another way, and the way that actually seems to be most successful for me personally is networking. Um, be it through LinkedIn, Facebook, whatever network you're on, actually going to networking events, joining fantastic groups like the Creatives, um, just mingling with people and learning what other people do, collaborating with other people. And then little by little, bit by bit, you get the occasional message saying, oh, I've just had an interesting conversation with someone who thinks they might need a voiceover. Would you like me to put you in touch? And I really like that sort of organic, ergonomic way of doing it because it comes out of relationship. It comes out of people who can actually recommend you because they know you've done a good job in the past. So that's the method that seems to work best for me. Everyone's got their own preference.
yeah, word of mouth is
Mm.
always fantastic because it's, we've heard it so many times, and it is true, people buy people.
Mhm.
And you're much more likely to buy from somebody you know, like, and trust, or explore
Recommend.
somebody who has given you a recommendation from somebody you know,
Yeah,
like, and trust.
yeah, I think so. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's why networking groups like creators are, as you said, very important because people get to know you personally.
Mm.
And if they ever hear of anything, you pop into their mind.
Yeah, yeah,
Absolutely.
absolutely.
Absolutely. It's another way of keeping you visible.
Mm.
And especially if you're not somebody who really likes so much self-promotion, if you like, but networking isn't about self-promotion. You don't just walk into the room and it's me, look what I do, look
Mm.
what I do. It's about, as you say, having conversations, building up a rapport with people. Do people share your values? Do people share your ethics? Do people get along with you on a personal level? Do people think that they can work with you?
Yeah,
And so just by having conversations, that's what leads
yeah,
to work, not necessarily you going out saying, oh, look at me, I do this, I
yeah.
do that, I do the other.
The thing with networking that I've found over the years, I wish I'd found this out sooner. You're never pitching your services to the people in the room, really, unless you happen to be walking into a room that's full of people who are your ideal client. You're never selling yourself to the people in the room. You're selling yourself to their connections and their connections. I used to be a member of BNI, one of the larger networking groups, and essentially every person in that room becomes your sales representative. They hear you speak, they get to know, like, and trust you. They get to get a feel of who you are and what you do and why you do it, what your motivation is. And then they go out into the world and keep their ears open. And it's reciprocal. You do the same for them. So you're always sort of thinking, oh, I just heard someone say, I really need an animator, a videographer, a photographer. I happen to know someone. Maybe I could put them in touch. And there's
Exactly.
a certain thrill to that. It's it's kind of like collecting things, you know. It's sort of, oh, who can I spot? Who can I find? Who can I put in touch with whom?
Yeah.
It's a real buzz. And if you're doing that for them, they're doing that for you as well.
Yeah.
What I found incredibly amazing after Melanie and I started Creators was just how supportive all the members were of each other. And they will go out of their way to give you advice, to help you. The number of members that we have in Creators that will give up maybe half an hour of their time just to talk to somebody who's new in their particular creative industry,
Yeah.
and just to give them some sort of advice and to boost their self-confidence. It's absolutely amazing. People are actually amazing.
Yeah, yeah.
They are. And I've found this a lot more actually since becoming self-employed. It's not the same in a corporate environment where people are kind of watching their own backs and making sure that their job's okay. And, you know, the people that have really come into their own, the most supportive and wonderful people I've met have been since leaving a corporate environment where it's all, oh yes, we'll support you, and it doesn't really mean anything, to actually people who really do, and people in the same industries as well. Like, you know, we've got a few voiceover artists in our group, and I know there are other networking groups that have got you know, similar industries or whatever. But it's when you come together and collaborate and help each other that the magic happens. Just because you're doing the same thing doesn't mean you should be competing against each other. That's a really old model, old way of doing things. But coming together can make wonderful things happen.
That's actually very true within the voiceover community. You know, there are more, well, I would estimate there are more voiceover artists, generally speaking, than there are jobs to go around. So you might think this is competitive. I'm pitching myself against all these other people. I'm going to do what I can to make sure I'm number one, you know. But actually, I'm a member of a few different groups within the VO community, and we support each other. We help each other. We recommend each other for gigs. If I see a gig that isn't suited to my voice, I'll mention it to one of my friends and say, "Hey, you should go for that." You know, we have networking groups. We have sort of practice rooms where we get together and practice our trade, and we give each other hints and tips. We're always online talking about, what do you think of this new microphone? What do you think I should do with my acoustic treatment? We're always helping each other to grow in the knowledge that it is a community. It's very, very community based.
Yeah.
There's also another aspect though, because once you get a job and you get to know your clients will recommend you, or the clients, if they like you for a certain job, they will keep you on and they'll roll you over, so to speak.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there are lots of examples of having repeat work. You know, there are certain clients who, once they've seen you do a good job and they get on with you, the next time they have a gig, they'll come back to you. You know, there are some people who are fortunate enough to be the official voice of a brand or a company, and they will keep on using you for their next commercial, their next telephone answering machine, their next whatever it might be, social media video. And they'll keep coming back to you because they know you deliver well, and you're a trustworthy brand. And you know, so repeat work is fantastic. But yeah, other than that, a lot of word of mouth, a lot of recommending people to other people, it works wonders.
Yeah. I think one thing for voiceover, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what your niche and your specialisms are in a minute, but I think every GP surgery in the country should have a professional voiceover for their answering machine. I don't think any GP surgery should leave it up to practice members. And I was having this conversation with another voiceover, Sarah Starling, who we both know, who is just marvelous, and her voice is so soothing and so comforting. And I've been playing some of that stuff when I've been unwell because it actually makes me feel a lot better. And I said, if I had your voice on the end of my GP surgery, I wouldn't feel so stressed when I go through to my GP. You know, it's so soothing. When people are ill, you want that soothing, calm, gentle voice. If there's any GPs or health practitioners out here, seriously have a word with your practice manager and say, do you know what? One of the best investments you'll make is getting a professional voiceover artist to voice your phone message. Agreed. It is really important.
That was actually my first paid gig, was a GP reception. It was my one of my local GPs, and I rang them up for an appointment, and the recorded message was someone who worked there. It was recorded directly onto the phone, and they'd done it in the reception area, so it was noisy. There was background chatter. You could hear keyboards clicking away, and they were shouting over the noise, and it just doesn't it doesn't fill you with a sense of calm and peacefulness and healing. It just makes you more stressed. So yeah, totally agree.
So what is your special? Do you have a specialism? And if so, what is it?
So I guess I've got two, maybe three specialisms, mostly around the corporate world. So my voice is very well suited to explaining and information and fact. I just happen to love random facts. I'm always boring people with random facts, as you may know. Um, but yeah, so I'm sort of quite well suited to the use our company. We offer these products and these services. Therefore, come and have a look at our website. Bright, inspiring, optimistic professionalism, that kind of thing. Another area that I have only recently started getting into at someone else's recommendation actually is the sleep and meditation apps. I was on a networking call one day online and someone said, "Oh, your voice just sends me to sleep." And I
In
said,
the
"Oh,
nicest possible way.
thanks very much. I didn't realize I was that boring." No, in a good way. So I've started doing quite a few of those, and yes, because my voice has a fairly low register, the lower tones tend to be more soothing and calming and relaxing. So
Give
I've
us a
done.
bit.
Hey,
Give
give us
us
a
a
bit.
bit.
Um, okay, I'm just going to move in. There's a technical thing called the bass proximity effect. The closer you get to your mic, the bassier it sounds. So I'm going to look stupid, but hey. Make sure you are sitting in a comfortable space with enough room around you. Take a deep breath in through the nose and out through the mouth,
Oh,
etc.
I like it. I like
Wow.
it.
So that works quite well for my tone. And so yeah, corporate sleep and meditation, and every now and then, just because it's fun, character voices. This is sort of where my love of voice first cropped up, I guess, as a kid. You know, I would watch the cartoons over and over again on VHS, if anyone remembers VHS. And I would just watch it again and again and again until I had all those voices down. So, you know, my Mickey Mouse is pretty good. Ha! And all of these funny little character voices. So every now and then I get to do something in character, whether that's for a little independent mobile phone video game or an animated character on a YouTube video or things like that. Um, I've recently been doing an audio book that has a few different characters in it. So I'm sort of switching from narrator to little pixie type character to big gruff, you know, monstrous character and back to narration. And I love doing that just for the sheer variety. It's just fun.
Yeah.
Your son must have loved. I mean, how old is your son?
He's 13.
Oh, right. So he's a bit old to be read to, but when he was
Yeah.
younger, he must
Yeah.
have loved you to read to him.
Yeah. We used to read Wind in the Willows. It's one of my favorite childhood books, and all of those wonderful characters would just sort of seep out, you know, and he would love it. He would start joining in. He now does quite a few funny voices and accents himself. So we spend a lot of our time just walking around the house, you know, just talking to each other in silly voices. Would you like some breakfast? Oh, yes, please. You know, it just makes life a bit more entertaining.
A bit more fun, doesn't it? Maybe he will follow in Dad's footsteps.
Maybe, who knows? Yeah.
Yeah. And your wife, does she find it entertaining or is it annoying?
I've never asked her.
Okay.
Maybe I should. I think she joins in now and then. So both my wife and son are on the autistic spectrum, and uh, sometimes that weird and wacky and crazy and off the wall stuff fits our family demographic really really well, and we all join in, and we're all, you know, really silly. Other times, the two of them like things to be a certain way and a certain predictability. So me going off the wall is the last thing they need. So it fluctuates from day to day. But yeah, they join in. They give as good as they get.
That's great.
Nice. A very entertaining household.
Yeah, yeah, very entertaining. Yeah.
At least interesting.
And my wife
Sorry.
is my wife's a piano teacher. So the house is always full of some kind of noise. She runs her own theatre group for children that raises money for charity. So the house is either full of me doing voices or her students playing piano or them doing a rehearsal for a show or something. There's always some kind of creative hubbub going on in this house.
Lovely.
Yeah.
And that's why you need to be in your own little soundproof bubble.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, it's very helpful having this here. So this is called a whisper room. This is a particular brand of booth. It's a self-contained unit that sits in the spare room in my house upstairs. And it just, yeah, it shuts all of that stuff away. It's quite useful. It's very
And how expensive was it for you to kind of set up for somebody starting out, if they're wanting to change direction? Was it expensive to buy some really good quality headphones and microphone? And I mean, pop shields aren't that expensive, but your booth and everything like that. How was it? Quite a change to actually set up? Or
if I had jumped straight in to get the equipment that I currently have, I wouldn't have been able to afford to do it. But I started off small and gradually worked my way up. So I bought a lot of second-hand equipment. My first microphone cost me about 30 pounds, I think, second-hand on eBay. When I first started out, I just had a duvet tent in the lounge, and that was my booth. I had a couple of clothes rails, on wheels, sitting in the middle of the lounge, and I chucked half a dozen duvets and blankets and pillows around it and made this little fortress for myself, which worked okay. It needed the surrounding environment to be quite quiet. It still leaked audio, but it was okay at the time. And then just little by little by little, I sold that mic and bought a slightly better one. I, constructed a booth made out of MDF that I'd sort of built myself, and that worked okay up to a point. But as I've improved in my abilities, the equipment has had to up its game to come with me.
Yeah.
So little by little by little, I've upgraded it all. I've lost count of how much I've spent on it over the last few years, but it doesn't necessarily have to be a huge initial outlay. There are ways and means around it, and then you can just upgrade little by little by little as and when you can.
Just get started somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, you were talking about your sound booth being a self-contained unit. How big is it, and how much did that cost you?
So this is just over 2 meters tall by 1.5 meters by 1.5 meters. So it's roughly the size of a telephone box, actually, maybe a little bit shorter. And it's all it's got a proper door with a window in it, and the foam I've sort of added myself. Brand new, these are about £8,000. I got it for just over 1,000, again, secondhand on eBay. I love eBay. Other marketplaces are available, but I've found some good stuff there. So yeah, there are ranges and ranges of things. There are things that I've got my eye on now, which eventually I would like to buy, which are a lot more expensive than this, but do a much better job. They're more soundproof, so I don't necessarily have to make sure that the timing works so that I'm not recording something whilst my wife's doing a piano lesson. Sometimes there is a little bit of piano that leaks through because it's not totally soundproof. The only space that's totally soundproof is like a nuclear bunker, and I can't afford one of those
Yet.
yet.
So
yeah.
give us your top tips for people who wish to change their careers, become self-employed voiceover artists. We've been talking about getting the equipment together. What would be your top tip when it comes to getting your equipment together?
Lots and lots of research. There is an endless wealth of information out there. So the website I mentioned earlier, Gravy for the Brain, that I did my training through, they have not only vocal experts and marketing business experts as well, but they have a lot of technical experts who can guide you through, what's a good setup to begin with. They'll, give you hints and tips when you're having technical problems, that sort of thing. But there are videos everywhere. There are voiceover artists who have a little YouTube channel that talk about the tech stuff as well from a professional point of view. There are websites. The companies that sell these things generally do a really good job of reviewing the equipment and saying, these are your alternatives. This is your low price, mid price, higher price range bracket. And this is the difference between this kind of microphone, that kind of microphone, this kind of audio interface, that kind of interface. So do your research, do lots of it, ask other people questions, see what works for them. Something that works for them may not work for you. So research the heck out of it, and make sure that you're comfortable with that before you go too far. Um, there was a quote, can't remember who it was by now, but someone sort of fairly early on in my career said, um, "Get good before you get seen." And at the beginning, it's very easy to be very, very keen, very eager. I've got myself a basic microphone and I've thrown a blanket over my head. I'm ready to send my demos out into the world, and the work is going to come pouring in. And it just doesn't. It takes time. So get good before you get seen, because if you sort of put your work out there and you send demos off to agents and it's poor quality, that can damage your reputation before you've even started. So make sure you've done your research, got the gear, and make sure that you're actually good before you start getting it out. So that's
Top
one
tip
tip.
number 2. How do you look after your voice, Simon?
You drink lots and lots of water. Lots and lots of water. I have never frequented the bathroom as frequently as I do now. Water is really important. So there's a wonderful voiceover artist called Nick Redman, who is an absolute vocal expert, right down to the physiological level. And she talks about how the voice works, how hydration works, and all this sort of thing. And water is really important. If you don't drink enough, your vocal cords, your larynx dries out and you become really crackly and dry. If you drink too much, your saliva changes its consistency and you sort of end up, you know, making all these kind of noises, which are horrible to edit out. So you kind of have to get the balance right. But yeah, drinking water is essential. And having a good warm-up routine. So every day before I do any kind of recording, I go through an actual physical warm-up routine. So the voice the voice doesn't just come out of this little box here. That box is supported by your neck muscles. Those are supported by your shoulders, your back. It's a whole system that works together to create sound. So do a few exercises, opening up your chest, doing some diaphragmatic exercises to make sure you're breathing correctly. Lots of actual vocal warm-ups. So I do a lot of tongue twisters. I do a lot of vocal sweeping, they call it, just to make sure that when you do go into the booth to record, you're not doing it raw, because that can actually really damage your voice, not preparing. So drinking lots, warming up. Top tip number 2.
Top tip number 3.
Be patient. It doesn't happen overnight. It really, really takes quite a long time. I wouldn't say I was fortunate to have spinal surgery and lose my job, but in a way, that gave me the time and the space to plow everything into this. And I have so much admiration for people who actually choose to have a career change whilst holding down a full-time job, because that's we don't have an infinite amount of time. But be patient. Don't It's such a cliche, but don't give up your day job. Not giving up your day job doesn't mean you're not going to make it. It just means these things do cost a bit of money and they do take quite a lot of time, and you need that financial support to see you through it.
Yeah.
So
Unless you're lucky enough to have a big redundancy pot,
yeah,
and you've got quite a bit of a cushion, and you know that you can set aside a certain amount of
yeah,
money to retrain.
exactly.
Or if you're offered a redundancy package, sometimes companies will offer you a package to retrain or offer
Yeah,
you some
yeah,
support like that. So if you're lucky
yeah,
enough to take that, great. But as you say, if you are just thinking of jumping ship from one to the other, whether
yeah,
it's voicing or whether it's anything else, it's not really
yeah,
recommended.
yeah. No, so I was fortunate enough to get a little bit of money from my employer after the back injury. But that soon ran out, and I had to go and get another part-time job to make sure that I still, could pay the bills and keep the roof over the head. Um, So be patient with it. Do plow as much time and energy into it as you can. Do the research, read the material, practice a lot. Go to networking events. Surround yourself by people who will encourage you and help you along your journey. But do be patient. It's not going to happen overnight. Don't get discouraged by that. I I went through quite a lot of discouraging phases where I just thought, this is never going to happen. This is
Mhm.
just taking an absolute age. But then little by little, a few jobs started coming in. I started getting known in a few small circles, and then those circles got bigger. But it takes time. Be patient.
Yeah, good advice. Absolutely good advice. Now we're at that point we're at that point.
Hey.
You can tell I'm feeling better. I'm beginning to get my sparkle. Begin to get my sparkle back when I get my cards out. These are one of my favourite. I like them. They're so soft. They're so soft. They're so silky. I could just sit here and play with these all day. They're just like so lovely, and they're
They look
bright, and
quality.
colourful, and just
Yeah, but for us that would be very boring, Melanie.
no. My cards. I like my precious. My
My
precious.
precious.
Right.
Don't
Okay.
you do, Gollum?
Enough of that. Enough of that. Right. I shall spread my cards out. You know the drill, Simon. I'm going to run my finger along the cards. You yell stop, and we'll talk about that value.
Stop.
Right. What have we got? Ooh.
The Ace of Diamonds.
Yeah. We've got independence.
Ooh.
Well, that's very apt.
That's quite a good one for self-employed persons. Absolutely. So, Simon, what does independence mean to you? What does it look, feel, and sound like?
So independence. So two elements to that, I suppose. One is, as you say, being self-employed. Not something I ever intended to do. I've always had a job with a regular income, doing work for a person. The independence of working on your own is fantastic and liberating and freeing and enjoying and scary and terrifying and pressurizing and e it has a flip side. The other element of independence, I suppose, for me is quite apt because I sit in a box on my own all day long and I don't see people until I come on things like this or I go out networking. Um, so it is kind of all on you, really. It's all on your shoulders to make sure that you are well trained, that you know what you're doing, that you're good enough to put yourself out there, that you're able to actually run the business. I had to take a small business course to actually learn how to do all the stuff. How do you do your accounts? How do you get clients? What is tax? That's always just been deducted from my paycheck. So
PAYE and yeah.
exactly, yeah, PAYE, love it, miss it to an extent. So yes, it's all on you, but at the same time, it's not all on you. You don't have to do it alone. There are all of these networks. There are so many people out there who are just ready to give you encouragement and support and advice. So you are independent. You are essentially, the buck stops with you, but you don't have to do it totally alone. There are so many people out there who can help and support and
Yeah.
advise you.
Yeah, absolutely. And big shout out to one of our other creatives members, new members, Sarah Jane Slocum, who is an accountant who helps creative people who make things. So
Go.
she's a tremendous asset to our group. And as you say, there are people who are specialists in supporting specialist industries, and they are there to help and support you. What does it say, as you're a sound man, Simon, what does independence sound like to you?
To me, independence sounds like I can picture what it sounds like, but I can't put it into words. Perfectionism comes into it somewhere because you are these days, we work from our own remote home studios majoritively. in the old days, you went to a studio, probably in central London or Manchester or wherever. You turned up, someone else did the recording, someone else did the editing, someone else did the directing. You just turned up, spoke, left. And when I started doing this, the tables were really turning. And then with COVID, it totally turned because all of those studios shut down. And so we suddenly started building our home studios. Whoever makes this acoustic foam must have been doing a rip-roaring trade at the time. And so independence means that you are not only doing the voiceover work, you're editing it, you're going back over it and making sure that it sounds right. You're tweaking your EQs, you're processing that audio file and then sending it off to someone. Sometimes it comes back with a couple of edits and you're tweaking it and doing it a little bit differently. So that independence sounds like, for me, it sounds like my own voice. I listen to my voice so much, it sometimes gets a bit boring for me. But critiquing the minor little things, if I were recording this instead of you guys, thank you that you're recording it. If I were recording this, I would go back and spend absolutely hours cutting out breaths, cutting out noises, cutting out every time I've just taken a swig of water to make sure that the audio is nice and clean and professional. So there's that element of it to me. Yeah.
What's it smell like?
Polyvinyl foam. And a little bit of sweat, because this room is really hot. Actually, even in the middle of winter, this room is poorly ventilated and covered in, I'm going to get technical. Sound waves generate heat and energy. So when you're sitting in a box that's quite small, you're generating heat yourself. The sound waves are reverberating off all of the foam. That comes back off the foam as heat. So it gets really, really hot in here. So yeah, it smells of foam and sweat.
Lovely. Foam and sweat. I love it. Brilliant. Oh my goodness. Simon, it has been an absolute delight having you on the couch. It's always a delight to talk to you, but it's been wonderful to have you here. Thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
And thank you to our audience for joining us as well. But our time is up. So until next time, we'll see you.